Okay, the first thing we're going to want to do is take these little strap pieces and assemble them across the corner of the XY stiffener. This is the XY stiffener plate piece. Assemble these little straps across here, and the purpose of these is to hold this structure at exactly a right angle. So the first we're going to do is get this out of the way. Take some of our screws here. And now the critical thing when installing these self-tapping screws is you have to make sure that the screw is held completely perpendicular to the surface as you start cutting the thread. If it gets cocked a little bit, the screw is going to jam, and if it jams, you can strip the thread either in the metal or on the screw itself, and then the thing becomes next to impossible to get out. Basically, you have to drill it out or grind the head off or something. So what we're going to do first here is insert the screws here, but don't tighten them down. Just have them sort of loosely in place. And do the same thing with the other side. I'm actually cheating a little bit here because these holes have already been, these screws have already been in these holes, so it's not taking a lot of force to get these threads going. When you put the screws in, if you start encountering too much force, you want to, don't force the screw, back the screw out again and try again. Because if you start getting the thread cross, the screw cross-threaded, then it's going to be really hard to work with. So now once with the bracket in place, what we're going to do is we're going to take our 12-inch square, and we're going to hold it up against here, and what we're going to do is tighten one of the screws, and then pull this other piece so that it's square, and then tighten the second screw. And go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. For the final tightening of all of these screws, I like to do it by hand, even if you're using a cordless screwdriver for doing the initial inserting of the screws. It's best to tighten everything by hand. Second step is we're going to be assembling now the XY slide onto the XY stiffener. Before we put that in place though, what we want to do is when you access these 4 screw holes that are right in next to the next to the bend, it's going to be really hard with our screwdriver to get in. You kind of have to tilt the screwdriver in, and it's hard to get the screws in completely vertically. So for these 4 screw holes, what I recommend is first pre-tapping those holes using a 1032 tap. So basically you'll just go in here, and the access is a little bit awkward because you'll have to be shifting the tap handle back and forth. But basically what you can do is get your tap started and then go ahead and tap these 4 holes in particular. That's going to make life much easier. I've already pre-tapped those holes, so now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and start assembling this piece. Try to do this without getting in view of the camera. So now with these 4 screws tightened in place, we can now go ahead and install almost all of the rest of our screws attaching these 2 pieces. What we'll be doing is installing on both sides the next 4 positions, but we're going to leave that 5th position open because that gets installed a little bit later. So we can go ahead, and I'm going to switch to using a cordless drill for this because this is just going to be much faster. And what you want to do is you want to set the clutch to some level that will just get the screws started, but not any more torque than you need, because you want to make sure that you don't end up stripping your screws out. So now with all of the screws assembled, except for the ones in the very end here, I'm going to do one last final check with the square to make sure that our rails are in fact at a right angle. The next step of the process is to assemble feet onto the bottom of this, so it'll make the whole thing a little bit easier to work with. Now you notice on the back of this, there's one side that has just 4 holes, and there's the other side that has 6 holes. The side with 6 holes is going to be the Z-axis, which is in the back. The side with 4 holes is the bottom. So we can go ahead and we're going to assemble one bracket like so, other bracket, or the other foot bracket in the opposite direction. So that's the basic frame assembly.